absolutely. And it's so funny that you mentioned those things because that's I literally had this typed out. What makes a Heisman Trophy candidate? I had stats, which as of today, and I had those stats that Blake Corum is number two. So this is through. Yep. So he is number two in the country in rushing yards. He is 901. The Illinois running back Chase Brown he's over 1,000 yards already. He's at
It's not shocking.
1059.
It's not shocking.
But he's got almost 50 carries more than Blake does. I mean, that's essentially, I mean, basically 2 games. So he's got a lot more carries, but many fewer touchdowns. So Blake's got 13, he's got 4. So I think obviously stats is number one. I also put impact, which I think we can all agree that his impact on these games and especially on the biggest game is huge, right? Donovan had some impact as well, but I think it's been Blake as the driving force, and then also too the Heisman moment. I had pulled up, let's see, the last okay, Heisman Trophy winners. So, as you go through them, you can kind of see like they each had their moments, right? Devontae Smith last year, the LSU one-handed catch on Derek Stingley. You had Joe Burrow in 2019. I mean, pick a game, he threw for 1,000,000 yards. Kyler beating Texas. You had Baker Mayfield beat Ohio State kind of early in that, in that season, but also went on to win the Big 12. Lamar Jackson, the Florida State game. So you've got to have that Heisman moment, and I think for Blake, I think most likely it's probably going to come in that Ohio State game because I think of just the impact that's going to be the biggest game of the year for Michigan, like without a doubt. Like we're clear and in lockstep on that. So if he comes out and I think Let's Toast had put something about 150 against Michigan State and 150 versus Ohio with wins, I think that'll be enough. Because if
Well,
Blake Corum gets to 150 yards, we're probably at least going to see 2 pretty amazing runs
oh yeah.
that where he's just fantastic. Where we're in awe of just his athletic ability.
Let alone, if he has like I mean, it's kind of hard to ask for 5 touchdowns like Asada Haskins did last year, but if he has 3 or 4, um, like you're talking about, like one of the eye-opening things about the game last weekend was I felt that Michigan broke Penn State's will after a certain point. Like they totally broke them. It hit a point where Penn State could tell, and they played hard. They tried. They're like, we can't stop these guys. Like we can't stop them. And they were
Mm-hmm.
woofing it up at halftime. Side note, I found that really funny. I don't like to
Throwing
kick.
peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Yeah, right. It's like I don't like to kick a man when he's down, but it's like, and it was funny. I think I
I
don't
love
think
I love when people say that. I don't want to kick a man when he's down, but and then here comes
okay.
the kick to
Well,
the man
here
when
comes
he's
the kick
down.
though. It's about to be a big kick too. Uh, it's. And I think Mike Morris brought it up, and talked about it's like, they were woofing up at halftime. I'm like, bro, like the only reason y'all were in the game off 2 fluke plays. Like
Hmm.
y'all were being dominated the whole game. Y'all want to talk trash? Like it is just like and then they saw what happened in the second half, and I found that funny. But anyway, um,
So what was that? 25? How many points did Michigan score in the second half? What was I'm trying to figure out what that second half run
I think
was cuz
they had 6. It was 16 to
so
14 at
25-0.
halftime.
Yeah, 25-0
Yeah.
run in the second half.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know what, like I just found that funny, like bro, y'all down 2 and y'all
You played is absolutely well, no, let me rephrase that. Michigan played an essentially flawless game outside of 2 plays, and that's the only reason you're in the game is
yeah,
2 plays. That's
literally
it.
like
That's it.
like 2 fluky plays, and like I just found that funny. Y'all want to woof up at halftime, but hey, stick your chest out if it make you feel good. But it's I don't know. I forgot my train of thought. Why I even went there, but breaking the wheel. So no,
Hmm.
no, no, no. And so if Michigan, it reminded me in a way what they did. Right? It got to a certain point where Ohio State, it didn't matter how bad they were trying to come back throughout that game. It's like, that's why I find it funny when people bring up the elements like, no, Ohio State on that day was not going to stop Michigan's running attack. It just
Correct.
wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. Partly due to something that they struggle with all year, which is their rush defense, and also how great Michigan was running the football on their own right. So, um, if that happens again this year and Blake is the driving force of that, man, yeah, I think you're talking about a consistent year with the stats he's had, plus that moment. That guy deserves to be in New York, and I think has a pretty good shot to to win. Look, Des, the way that this season has gone. I mean, you got a running back. Let's say that happens, right? And Michigan's number two in the country, and Blake's had the year he's had. Man, it's gonna be hard to not sell that guy winning the Heisman.
Yeah, and honestly, I think about it. If Michigan goes 12-0, I'm not even sure Blake needs a Heisman moment against Ohio State. I think he would have enough just on his current trend where I think he'd be, because I mean you'd have to imagine he'd be at least a 1,500-yard rusher. He's got 13 touchdowns right now, and we all know that number's going to increase because Jim Harbaugh likes to run the football, so that number's only. I mean we're talking 1,500 yards and 20 touchdowns, probably bare minimum. That's going to be for the number 2 team or potentially number 1 team in the country. That's going to be really difficult. It's going to be. He's got a ticket to New York with that. I know that for sure.
Yeah,
He's got a ticket for that.
great story too, by the way. This is a great story. Comes from a very humble background. Um, Overall, I mean, he's built really good for running back. For height wise, he's kind of undersized, about 5'8". He's the kind of guy you root for. He really is. He's a workaholic kind of kid, high character kid. And you know what, Des, for me, I love seeing people be rewarded for their hard work. If Mike Hart puts his credibility on the line and says, "Look, this kid works too hard sometimes," and I have to tell him, like he said that during a pregame show, like I have to text him and talk to him sometimes, like, "Hey, it's okay to take some, it's okay to rest your legs, man. You're a running back, dude.
That's impressive.
Rest is just as important as work." Mike Hart tells you that, who was an incredible worker at Michigan. All-time leading rusher at Michigan. We know his credentials. That's telling you a lot. And to see that kid's work, patience, and also work pay off, man, is great. And if he continues to do what he's doing, he's going to make some money on the next level. He really is.